We're also following another train derailment in the state of Ohio. This happened just this weekend, more than a month after the first by the same transportation company, Norfolk Southern. You can see in this video shot by a driver at the crossing, the cars begin to run off the tracks and eventually tip over. 20 cars end up peeling off the track near Springfield, Ohio. Residents nearby were asked to briefly shelter in place. Officials say there's no indication of any risk to public health from the derailment. And as these incidents are making headlines, federal lawmakers are pushing for better safety standards for rail companies.
And the CBS 12 News I-Team is looking into continued concerns over transportation of LNG, liquefied natural gas, through our area on what some safety advocates call bomb trains.
The first Ohio train incident did not involve liquefied natural gas. Crews are still working to clean that up, and people living nearby may have been exposed to serious health risks. NTSB investigators believe the problem was a failed wheel bearing on the 23rd car. And by the time the crew tried to stop the train, it was too late. 38 cars came off the tracks, 11 carrying dangerous chemicals. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg visited the site last week. We asked him about a decision regarding transporting LNG on railroad cars that's due later this month.
I-Team Chief Investigator Mike Magnolia. And Mike, you worked with our sister station in Ohio to press the press secretary about this.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, this is an important question and it's timely. The concern is that a similar accident to the one in Ohio, but with cars carrying LNG, could be an even worse disaster than what just happened in Ohio. So right now, Florida and Alaska are the only two states where LNG can legally be transported in train tanker cars. Secretary Buttigieg has a decision to make about whether that program will expand or disappear.
Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg has control of the Federal Railroad Administration and the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. Those are the two agencies overseeing what material can safely be moved by train. Limits on transportation of liquefied natural gas were relaxed during the Trump administration. We wanted to know what the Biden administration's thinking is on that subject.
The Department of Transportation is expected to have a ruling in March on LNG transport by rail. Has that decision been made yet? Are you worried that transporting LNG by rail car could lead to an even bigger disaster than this?
So I'm not ready to get ahead of a finalized rule or announcement there. What I will say is that this situation calls on us to re-examine everything that's been underway related to those issues. Now, what we found as we first looked at that LNG rule was that class of rail movement was unlikely, at least in the short term, to happen anyway. Nobody was seeking to use those kinds of cars. But we're setting policy for the long run. We've got to make sure we get it right.
Moments after those comments, I tweeted at the secretary this screenshot. It's from Florida East Coast Rail's website. Rail transportation creates a virtual pipeline for LNG. Florida East Coast Rail is beginning to explore additional opportunities around the transport of LNG as a commodity. In previous I-Team stories, we've explored the risks of LNG transportation by train. And you may recall a study by the Martin County Fire Rescue Department. They concluded that a hole just 4 inches wide in one of those tankers could cause a gas cloud capable of igniting even hundreds of yards away from the tracks.
And it's got to be stopped now before something happens like Ohio.
Gail Ryan is a retired teacher living in Stewart. The back of her orange Mustang, a collage of the causes she's passionate about. And in a corner of her porch, she stows all of her signs. These are from the rallies and protests that she's been a part of. Opposing rail transportation of liquefied natural gas and Brightline's high-speed passenger trains are top of her list these days. That's because Brightline and the FEC freight trains share the same tracks.
And no one is telling them about the LNG cars. They're talking about Disneyland.
As it stands, only these tender cars, which ride directly behind the locomotives, contain LNG. But the industry wants federal permission to move LNG in bulk. That means stringing LNG tanker cars together.
It's lighter than air, it floats through the air and catches on fire. It's a very frightening thing. So I hope Pete Buttigieg, I hope that he puts people's interest first and our safety first.
Another Stewart-based rail safety activist is conservative radio host Casey Ingram.
Wait till you have something like LNG on these trains.
She often talks about the trains on air. A hot topic right now between what happened in East Palestine and Brightline and the LNG issue.
So I'm waiting here with bated breath as much as anybody else is, and I'm hoping for the right thing to be done here, that they realize transporting LNG on the rail is not safe yet.
All right, Mag, so when are we expected to get a decision on this?
Well, we could see it today. Want to show you how much pressure is mounting on this issue and how the sand may be running out of the hourglass. The day after Pete Buttigieg's press conference and our question, he got this letter. This is from 7 Democrats in the Congress, in the congressional delegation from Pennsylvania. Now, they don't mince words in this letter here at all. They are asking for the secretary to ban LNG by rail. The DOT says that March 6th, that's today, could have an answer on this because a report is slated to be released dealing with railroad regulations. And Matt and Steph, you may remember from my previous stories on this, this decision has been delayed so many times, so the industry is basically in a holding pattern right now. Let me show you something else too, some headlines from this morning and from the past couple of days. Pressure is mounting, and there are some Republicans on the Hill calling for Pete Buttigieg to resign. Here's one from Fox News Channel, another one from the Hill, Rubio calling for Buttigieg's resignation. So the pressure is mounting, and this is becoming more and more time sensitive by the day.
Tonight, danger in the water. A local surfer is recovering after being bitten by a shark along our coastline. And an off-duty Boynton Beach firefighter springs into action to help. Hope Sound resident Bert Krebs has been surfing for a long time.
The water's been just a part of my life, so since I was a little kid. But really, when I got to Florida, I started surfing more in 1986.
He says he sees sharks all the time while out on the water.
I saw 2 sharks that morning in a wave just swimming by. And so, you know they're there, you think about it, but I never thought it would happen.
But about 2 weeks ago, while he was surfing at Hope Sound National Wildlife Refuge Beach, it did. Krebs had just finished riding a wave and was getting back on his board.
All of a sudden there was, the bite, and 2 seconds later it was done. It bit me. I either pulled my leg away or it let go. And I knew right away what happened. I knew it was a bite, and I yelled shark bite to my friends.
Instrumental in the response was Boynton Beach firefighter Kyle Davison. Davison was off duty and enjoying his weekend at the beach when Krebs was bit.
I was in work mode. I just ran to the truck, grabbed medical supplies, and tried to get them as fast as I could.
In the chaos, Krebs was taken up the beach.
Waiting there was a guy with a towel and water and gauze, and I was like, what's going on here? And he said, hi, we saw this going on.
Supplies Davison used to help Krebs.
The wound was covered in sand, so I cleaned the wound with the supplies that I had. I applied pressure with some bandages to control the bleeding and wrapped it in gauze, while my girlfriend, she called 911.
Got to thank Kyle and his partner, because they were instrumental in just keeping me calm.
Krebs' surgeon says everything's looking good.
Bert's made a tremendous recovery after being bit by a shark, and I'm happy to see the progress that he's made since then. He's motivated, and I suspect that he'll continue to do well and ultimately get back to surfing.
And that's the goal for Krebs, to get back out on the water, doing what he loves as soon as possible. Davison says he was lucky to be in the right place at the right time. Him and Krebs exchanged numbers, and Davison says he hopes to be able to go surfing with him in the future.
Our Kara Duffy's at the scene of a deadly plane crash. Kara, what do we know what happened?
Well, Matt, Stephanie, we just got to the scene just a short while ago, and we did get confirmation that 2 people were killed when this small plane behind us here crashed several hundred yards from the runway at the Lantana Airport. Now, this is right along Lantana Road, just a short distance from the road itself, in between the busy highway and the airport here. Now, as you can see, there's only about 2 or 3 deputies here on scene. Overnight, they've just been kind of staying put here as they continue their investigation. They're waiting until the sun comes up this morning, and that's when we're told that the Federal Aviation Administration and the National Transportation Safety Board, they are expected to arrive to continue to investigate the cause of this crash. Now, this happened last night, we're told, shortly after 9:30. Again, small plane, we know 2 people were killed in that crash. Again, the big question this morning, exactly what caused it and where was was that pilot attempting to land. Now we're going to continue to stay put. Again, we should expect more answers throughout the morning as some of those federal authorities make their way out here. According to a spokesperson with PBSO, they say that those federal agencies will be assisting the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office in this investigation.